Okay, so let's just take the standard music critic line about punk rock. Greatest thing to happen to popular music since the Beatles. Returned rock and roll back to its scrappy, dangerous roots after years of arena bloat and pretension. The spirit of 77, Sex Pistols and the Ramones, CBGBs, Alienation and Rage and Safety Pins as Jewelry, all that shit. All part of one of the greatest and most enduring movements in rock history. So if we take all that to be true, what happened in the 80s?
Wake me up before you go.
Seriously, what happened? Surely, in the heart of the Reagan and Thatcher era, the rebellious soul of punk rock should have been more vital and necessary than ever, right? And it was. Punk music lived on and thrived in the 80s, and you wouldn't have any problem finding great punk rock. You know, if you were into that. But if you were not an actual punk, if you were not wearing a mohawk and going to dingy clubs and slam dancing to bands with names like the Piss Hydrants, punk may as well have been completely dead to you. The first wave of punks were not just underground, they were actual genuine hitmakers, notorious to the public at large. But by '84, it had fallen back out of the mainstream. Most of the good bands had broken up or couldn't break through. At best, you had cartoon sellout Billy Idol, or bands like U2 or the Talking Heads who were barely punk to begin with and left it far behind. And then there's the sad, sad story of The Clash. If there was any punk band that should have owned that decade, it was The Clash. Arguably the greatest punk rock band that ever existed. They were the righteous political soul of the genre, and they stormed into the 80s having just released their greatest album, London Calling, a record so amazing that they picked up the mantle, the only band that matters. Just a couple years later, they released the album Combat Rock, which broke them into the mainstream with massive hit singles. They were selling out giant arenas, headlining festivals. And that, as far as most are concerned, is where the story ends. Unable to reconcile their revolutionary ethos with their pop success, the band fell apart. They scattered to the wind. They never reunited. And because bandleader Joe Strummer passed away in 2002, they never will. The legend of The Clash ends there, immaculately and eternally etched into rock history. But that's not exactly how it went down. The Clash did lose some key members in 1983, but they put together a new lineup and soldiered on. And as far as Joe Strummer was concerned, this was all a good thing. This was a bold new chapter for the band. And as the glitz and glamour of MTV took over, the world needed The Clash more than ever.
Clash had to come back in order to tip the balance so that a young person isn't going, oh, I have to put makeup on and wear a dress to really make it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, in 1985, The Clash re-debuted to the world, ready to bring punk rock's raw energy back to the masses with their new record, Cut the Crap. And what an unfortunately fitting title that was. They did indeed cut the crap. They cut 12 tracks of crap. No record has ever teed itself up for the critics like that since Spinal Tap released Shark Sandwich.
Merely a two-word review just said, shit sandwich.
Shit Sandwich was my original name for this series, by the way. But yeah, crap. The reviews were brutal. The fans were disgusted. The band fell apart once and for all. Cut the Crap was supposed to bring the rebel spirit back to the world, but all it did was end the first wave of punk rock for good. Should they stay? No, they should go now. The Clash craps out. This is Train Records. Okay, I'll admit, sometimes I slack off doing these episodes, but I wanted to get this one right because The Clash is one of the greatest bands in history, and there is a wealth of information about them, so I did my research this time around. Bought a bunch of books, read a whole lot of documentaries, and almost to a one, no one wants to talk about this phase of their career. For example, here's all MTV has to say about it.
Finally, Strummer and Simonon parted ways with Mick Jones. Clash lived on as a logo for a while, but the real band was dead. The music lives, though.
Thanks, Kurt Loder. Really useful to my video. Glad I watched all of that. The official band documentary, Westway to the World, ends right in 1983. No mention of the band existing afterward. Giant-ass box set from 2013 includes none of the songs from this album. Rolling Stone says this lineup doesn't even count. I bought a book that reviews literally all of the songs. I mean, look at this thing. So thick. It's got like 2 full pages on the Magnificent Seven alone. but when it gets to cut the crap, it'll give like a paragraph per song written in a tone of, ugh, do we really have to talk about this? Most fans don't even call this lineup The Clash. They're The Clash Mark II. Apparently they were such a shadow of themselves they don't even deserve the name. You would think the band had been entirely recast like the New Monkees. Here's what actually happened. They lost 2 members. Topper Heaton, the drummer, was the first to go because of drug problems. Sad, but pretty standard for rock bands. Drummers get replaced. The big firing was when they let go Mick Jones. Mick Jones and Joe Strummer were the twin leads of the band. They both sang, wrote most of the songs together. They're the Lennon and McCartney of the band, basically. But Mick apparently wasn't punk enough. He was too much a rock star, flashing cash, dating models, just generally being kind of a dick, and tensions escalated until he got sacked. But it wasn't just his attitude, there was also musical tensions. Mick had a lot of eclectic influences that he would bring to his next band, Big Audio Dynamite.
Situation now, man.
That was a fun, weird group. They did a lot of hip-hop, dance, sampling. But Joe wanted to bring the group back to basics.
I looked at all the people who were making records and doing shows, and I realized that they'd all gone overproduced, overproduction. We wanted to strip it down, back to punk rock roots, and see what's left and see how it progresses from there.
Yeah, none of that poncy, overproduced synth garbage. We're real rock and rollers. So why don't we actually take a listen? Let's check out this scrappy, lo-fi DIY album. Here's the opening track, Dictator. Okay, that's clearly a drum machine. Why does it sound like that? Is the drum track out of sync with the rest of the song? What's going on? What is this? What the fuck is that synthesizer? Are they playing it with their head? Did they pick up the keyboard and point it face forward in front of a softball machine? I have never heard production this ugly. And I don't mean ugly in the punk way, it's ugly in the we have no idea what we're doing kind of way. I mean, you want to talk about overproduced. Fucking Asia would tell you to dial it back with all this shit. Jeez. What is that awful background noise? It sounds like when you're between radio zones and 2 stations are trying to share the same frequency. Is the problem on my end? Is it my speakers or... Hold on. Let me try these. No, I seriously did check through several sets of speakers and headphones trying to make sure this wasn't some kind of hardware issue on my end. No, the mixing is actually that bad. It sounds like there was a 4-year-old in the production booth playing with the levels. But I guess all the noise and the busy production is meant to emphasize the lyrical theme about how it feels living in a South American-style dictatorship and how it relates to... Oh, who am I kidding? I can't make out a single word. Lyrical theme. I almost don't even want to continue. Jeez. Well, I did continue, and I can tell you that at the very least, nothing else on the album sounds like that. But that doesn't mean it's ever good. The second song in the album is called Dirty Punk.
Gonna be a dirty punk. Gonna crowd out neighborhood.
Okay, yeah, that's more like it, right? This sounds like the hardcore record Strummer was talking about making.
Gonna get me a big
There you go, see, he's a dirty punk, and he just wants to drive his car down the boulevard. Like punks do?
I am a dirty punk. Gonna rock your neighborhood.
This is inane. Like, I'm glad the production isn't a mess like the first one, but the lyrics sound like a suburban poser kid trying to sound punk. And same goes for the album cover, which looks like a Walmart punk t-shirt. The Clash were supposed to be engaged and righteous. The lyrics to this sound like a doofy hair metal song. When he said he wanted to bring back rawness and danger, is that what he meant? I watched those interviews, and he's doing his best to be, the sharp-edged, angry young man lashing out at the world.
Drugs are over. Drugs are over from this minute now. Anybody who takes a drug is a hippie, and hippies can shove off.
But, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but this all seems really forced. Ugh, oi, I'm a punk rocker, shove it up your asshole, wanker. He doesn't really sound like he believes it, although he does seem legitimately unhappy at least. Like, what's going on here? Now let's look at the next song, We Are the Clash. Are you kidding me? Boy, that's good to know, because I was worried that this version of the band couldn't legitimately be The Clash, but now I know they are, because they told me. Look, there's no other way to say this. This sounds like the theme for a Clash TV show. The Clash, weekdays at 4:30 on Fox 10. We are The Clash. Are ya? Are you now? Who are these new guys anyway? Well, the two new guitarists are Nick Shepard and Vince White. Mick Jones was so important in the band they apparently needed two guys to replace him. The new drummer was Pete Howard. Honestly, no one was ever particularly impressed with their stint in the band, least of all themselves. There's different theories over why they didn't work. I saw one guy say that they were basically Clash fanboys, so they didn't really bring anything new. They themselves said they were intimidated because they were rookies and they didn't really feel like they could participate. It doesn't really matter because they're not really on this record. Their parts were recorded by session musicians and a drum machine, which I'm guessing no one knew how to operate because the beats on this record sound like trash. Anyway, let's get back to that. This is track 4, Are You Red? Ready? Are you... What the hell kind of title is that? Just the sound of this album. Again, this is the stripped down punk record you wanted to make? This sounds like a half-assed Frankie Goes to Hollywood tune. Red, maybe a reference to communism. I don't even care. I can't get past this half-assed electro-funk sound. All this talk about trying to be better than the overdressed, makeup-covered music for the masses, this sounds exactly the same, only worse. Barely a difference. Who made this? What idiot producer did this to them? Jose Unidos. Who the hell is that? Wikipedia, help me out. Okay, let's talk about Bernie Rhodes. The Clash is Bernie's band, basically. It's his idea. He found all the members and put them together. He gave them their look, made a lot of decisions about their creative direction. He's also minorly involved with the Sex Pistols, but that really wasn't his baby. The Clash was. He also exerted what some members called a Stalinist control over the band, and because of that, he clashed with some of the band, Mick especially, so he was fired in 1979. But Joe really liked Bernie. He was a real Bernie bro, if you will. And when their triple album Sandinista didn't sell, the band went deep into debt with the record company, so they put Bernie back in to help bail them out. And under his reigns, they got back on top. So he's very important to the band and their history. But if you listen to anyone who was there during this phase of the band, Bernard Rhodes comes off as an extremely sinister figure. It was Bernie's idea to fire Mick, and lots of people say now that this was Bernie's evil plan to make an opening where he could become part of the band. See, around this time, the Sex Pistols manager was having his own hits, so I guess Bernie got jealous, and he decided he was going to use The Clash to launch his own musical career. Basically, The Clash is Biggie Smalls, and Bernard Rhodes is Puff Daddy. Except Puffy turned out to be a lot more talented. Yeah, I went there. The stories behind the scenes are way more interesting than the record, which, quite honestly, I don't even know what to say about it. These songs just plain aren't finished. Pretty much to a one, every track relies on the whole band shouting the chorus. Rolling Stone called it the Oi Choir, and believe me, you will get sick of it real quick. And the choruses themselves are just weak. The Clash, at their height, were great songwriters. Not just in the punk, bash, and thrash and shout kind of way. They had really, genuinely well-constructed songs. And most of that, apparently, was Mick's doing. Joe was more of a lyrics guy. Replacing Mick with Bernie Rhodes, who is, again, the manager. It's what would happen if, like, instead of Lennon and McCartney, we had Lennon's mailman and McCartney. Look, Bernie had almost zero experience as a producer or a musician or a writer before this. Yes, he was very important to the band and their success. So were their girlfriends, probably. So were their accountants. Every bad decision on this album can be traced back to Bernie. Fans who heard early versions of the songs in concert said they sounded good. Bernie forced that electronic shit on the band against Joe's wishes. He changed the title at the last second to the one with crap in the title, thanks for that. He's the one who made the greatest punk band in history sound like every other shit act on MTV.
Has anybody got a cigarette?
Oi, Mickey, you're so fun, you blow my mind. Hey, Mickey! Hey, Mickey! Okay, is there anything good on this album? Well, there is one song that everyone seems to like in hindsight, and that is the only single, This Is England. It's the only song on the album that wound up on any of the compilation albums. Joe Strummer has called it the last good Clash song.
This is England. This night will shed you steel. This is England. This is how we feel.
Honestly, I can't really say I'm a super fan. Again, it's just a production thing with the synthesizers. A Clash song should sound different from a Phil Collins song, is my feeling.
I on a human factory farm.
Lady in Red. But I see why it has fans. The song is really spare, so the lyrics bubble up and they're a pretty bleak portrait of British poverty. Everyone's broken poor, police violence, no one has a car to drive or anything.
I got my motorcycle jacket, but I'm walking all the time.
Such a tremendous song because it just represents what's going down, you know. We don't have a fucking England anymore. Everything is down the tubes.
It does really capture something about the bleak misery of the Thatcher era. But that's about it as far as good tunes. Like, when people try to defend this album, it's mostly people just saying things like, oh, well, there's like a couple okay songs. But no one can seem to agree on which ones are the good ones. For me, I don't know, I guess I like the chorus to Movers and Shakers. North and South I'm kind of fond of too. I'm not saying they're great either, they're just the ones that aren't completely destroyed by the shitty sound design. But even for the Defenders, it was mostly too little too late. Midway through the production, Joe says he kind of gave up after realizing what a terrible mistake he'd made letting Bernie convince him to fire Mick, and he just got really depressed and checked out.
Points gonna pop tonight. Gonna point at the best girl in sight.
Yeah, I can kind of tell he wasn't giving it his full effort. Joe just powered through the end of the sessions and then disappeared. The planned music video for This Is England got canceled because the day of the shoot no one showed up to be in it. And that's where the story ends for The Clash. The band ended for real this time. Joe and Mick made up and even made an onstage appearance shortly before he died, but they never officially reunited. Cut the Crap remains a widely despised catastrophe. And where The Clash's great albums are timeless, their final album is too dated and cheesy to listen to. Bernie Rhodes blames the album's bad reviews on censorship and anti-punk bias. You know, for a guy leading a revolutionary band, he sure sounds like a DC fan complaining about Rotten Tomatoes. But if you want a silver lining, here's this. We Are The Clash seems like a misconceived and defensive attempt to establish the new lineup's credibility. But Strummer says that's not how it was intended. It was supposed to be an affirmation to all the fans that they were all The Clash. See, there's a little Clash in all of us. It's almost unpunk how heartwarming that is. But since The Clash's music has proven so enduring, I think it's kind of true. We, the fans, are The Clash. But these guys were not.